Incredible twist, Black CEO's seat hidden and stolen. Discover the touching reaction that REVEA. Jordan Carter inhaled sharply as he entered his sleek modern office on the second floor of Carter Tech. The walls, adorned with family photos and quotes from his late grandfather, whispered wisdom and strength into the room. Today was crucial. A board meeting loomed ahead, one that could shift the direction of his startup and validate years of relentless effort. As he made his way to the conference room, anticipation pulsated through him, but that excitement quickly twisted into dread. He approached the table, expecting to take his seat at the head, only to find a gaping absence where his nameplate should have been. Confusion morphed into a deep, gnawing unease. Looking around, he felt the weight of stares from his colleagues' practiced awkwardness etched on their faces. Then, he spotted Malcolm, a fellow executive whom he had thought was a friend, smirking from the corner of the room. The realization slammed into him. This was no mistake, it was a deliberate act of sabotage. A swell of betrayal washed over him. How dare Malcolm, someone who had celebrated his victories, turn so viciously? Jordan stood still, his heart racing, fingers tingling with tension. A wave of anger mixed with the bitter tinge of sadness. Loyalty once shared now felt like jagged glass. Could he confront Malcolm? Would it escalate into a confrontation that jeopardized the very essence of the corporate family he had worked so tirelessly to cultivate? The absence of his seat echoed deeper truths about their industry, truths that he longed to transcend. He took a deep breath, thoughts swirling like leaves in a tempest. Memories of his grandfather flooded back, the lessons of integrity, respect, and perseverance. But even the comfort of nostalgia couldn't quell the disquiet brewing within him. He was a black man in tech, striving against odds, and now facing betrayal from within. What if this act stemmed from jealousy, a fear that he would outshine others simply due to hard work and talent? The system they operated in was tainted, and here was proof, playing out in excruciating detail. Before the pressure could squeeze the air from his lungs, an unexpected figure stepped in, the other elusive executive, Clara Mason. With silver hair framing her gentle yet steely demeanor, she sensed the storm churning behind his eyes. "Jordan," she said softly, "I've faced a lot of what you're grappling with. I know it's easier said than done, but vulnerability is where your strength lies. Everyone has their battles." Her eyes reflected battle scars of her own, propelling Jordan to unearth his inner resolve. Just then, the inner struggle intensified. Would he let his emotions override his vision? Or could he turn this moment, this crippling betrayal, into a bridge, opening dialogue instead of deepening divides? Each option felt heavy, the fear of taking the high road intertwined with the allure of retaliation. Before they entered the boardroom, chaos loomed once more. Jordan learned of Malcolm's scars, fear of insignificance, failure, and a gnawing dread rooted in systemic biases. Would he confront the sabotage and reclaim his position, or should he bridge understanding to forge change? As he stepped toward the boardroom, heart racing with a mixture of determination and uncertainty, the room seemed to hold its breath. A storm of decision loomed overhead, and his next words would shape the destiny not just for him, but for the company itself. As the door swung open, Jordan could feel the shift in the atmosphere. The boardroom, usually humming with energy, now seemed to vibrate with an unspoken tension. Each seated member's gaze flickered away from Malcolm and landed on him, disbelief etched on their faces. Jordan swallowed hard. This was his moment, his chance to redefine not just his role, but the entire path of the company he had fostered. Clara took a final, steadying glance at him before pooling her strength and stepping into the room alongside him. The board members were an eclectic mix of established professionals, their backgrounds contrasting sharply with his own. There were whispers of apprehension, veiled glances, but he was determined to own this moment. "Good morning, everyone," Jordan began, his voice calm yet resonant. He walked to the head of the table, his table forcing himself to ignore the absence of his nameplate. "I believe we need to address what transpired before we dive into our agenda." Malcolm's amusement had melted, replaced by a mask of faux indifference. "What you mean is just a misunderstanding," he interjected, his words laced with poison. Surely we can move past this, Jordan. Jordan steadied his breath, the weight of his grandfather's lesson solidifying in him. This isn't about a seat or a misunderstanding. It's about respect and the environment we choose to create. I believed we were building a company based on collaboration and trust. Malcolm shifted, clearly uneasy. But Jordan pressed on. It's clear that not everyone shares that view. It's time we address the underlying issues of self-doubt, jealousy, and competition that have no place here. He saw uncertainty ripple through the board. Clara's thoughtful nod gave him courage. I've worked hard to stand at this table, and yes, being a black CEO carries its own weight in our industry. But I am here because I deserve to be. Today, I won't allow anyone to question my position due to their insecurities. The moment stretched and swayed like a pendulum. Jordan could feel eyes narrowing, some in appraisal, others in resistance. He raised his voice, letting gravity settle in. We need to move forward, but that means beginning with honesty. Malcolm, why did you feel the need to undermine me? A profound silence enveloped the room. Malcolm's bravado crumpled, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. I felt threatened, he admitted, voice low. My whole career, I've been fighting to keep my place as others pushed past me. I didn't want to be overlooked again. Jordan leaned in, the tension thickening as he responded. That's the real conversation we need to have. We should be supporting each other, not tearing one another down. Fear can paralyze us, or we can break the cycle. I choose understanding. The boardroom resonated with a quiet hum as people began to exchange glances, their expressions shifting. It was a shared rupture to face their own biases and fears. Jordan had stepped into the storm but emerged with clarity, seeing the way forward not through confrontation, but through a raw, earnest dialogue. As he finished, he could hear the faint sound of chairs scraping against the floor as the board sensed the need for agency. The meeting began to shift, discussions commenced, first hesitantly, then with increasing vigor. Each voice was a piece of the solution, but Jordan also understood that the battle for recognition was far from over. His next steps would have to be measured navigating this new reality with strategy and intention. Having lit the match of honesty, he wondered if the room would stay warm or burst into flames. Would they embrace change together, or would resistance linger like smoke in the air? And in this complex dance of ambition and collaboration, a single question echoed in his mind: how much more of himself would he need to reveal to truly revolutionize the narrative at Carter Tech? The clock was ticking, and Jordan felt a rising urgency as he braced himself for the challenges yet to come. The real test would be redefining not just their company, but shifting the narrative of what leadership looked like in an industry often resistant to change. Jordan felt the vibration of his pulse quicken as the meeting continued. The eyes surrounding him, once skeptical, now held a melange of introspection and burgeoning respect. Uncertainty and excitement danced in their glances, urging him to delve deeper. He sensed that they were ready for an authentic discussion, a pathway to real change. Let's talk about the issues, Jordan prompted, pressing forward with conviction. What do you fear most in your roles here? Competition, inadequacy? A board member named Elaine, known for her analytic rigor, leaned slightly forward, her brow furrowed in thought. It's the fear of being sidelined. It's almost palpable, she confessed, her voice steady despite the vulnerability it exuded. We're often pitted against each other, and it leads to defensiveness instead of innovation. Her admission sparked a moment of collective introspection among the board. Jordan recognized this was a critical juncture. Here lay the heart of their dysfunction. He seized the opportunity to bridge the gap. What if we turned that fear into motivation? What if every one of us contributed our strengths to cultivate growth rather than to secure our positions? The tension began to thaw, like morning fog dissipating in the sun. People started nodding, sharing their own stories of insecurity and competition. Jordan realized in this moment that true leadership wasn't merely about authority but about facilitating dialogue that mattered. He marked it as a significant turning point, a bold stride he never expected to take so soon. But going deeper raised his anxiety. Every layer he removed felt like both a risk and necessity. How far should he go to inspire trust? Did honesty mean revealing his insecurities as well? Yet, as he took a deep breath, he felt a weight lift, acknowledging that connection didn't stem from perfection but rather authenticity. Despite my position, he began, allowing vulnerability to lace his words, I sometimes question whether I belong in this role. I've struggled to find my footing, thinking I have to prove my worth every single day. He saw eyes widen in realization. Sometimes the truth was isolating, but it could also foster solidarity. Clara's supportive smile reassured him, reflecting understanding and bravery. Her steadfast presence reminded him that they were allies, dismantling the barriers of their shared experiences together. It can be tempting to hide our struggles, he continued, but if we can acknowledge them, we empower one another. We thrive together or we falter alone. There was a resonance in the room, an intimate camaraderie beginning to form among the board members. For the first time, Jordan noticed glimmers of belief not just in him as a leader but in themselves as integral pieces of a larger puzzle. They could transform their company, together. The energy shifted dramatically. It no longer felt like a battle for survival but rather a chance to build something greater. As discussions deepened, Jordan stepped back briefly to assess the room once more, an assemblage of faces, stories, and untapped potential. It was exhilarating yet terrifying, a precarious balance of possibility and responsibility. He knew he had breached an unspoken barrier, but doubt crept back in. Would his words resonate beyond today? By the end of the meeting, Jordan felt a flickering ember of excitement igniting a new ethos, a promise of relentless pursuit to engage everyone's voice. But lurking beneath that light was a creeping anxiety about sustaining the momentum. Would they ultimately rally around this new vision, or would old habits shroud their intentions? The days ahead would require dexterous navigation. Change was only meaningful if it endured the test of time and turbulence. As he walked out, he caught Malcolm's wary gaze and felt fire beneath his skin. The unspoken tension between them hadn't dissipated, nor had the challenges ended, but this confrontation had birthed something irreversible, a recognition that their journey together would demand the utmost courage from them all. Would he be able to motivate not just growth, but also a culture of inclusion and inspiration? The prospect dangled in the air, and he knew it wouldn't take long for everything to be put to the test again. What decisions awaited him, and would they forge a path toward the vision he desperately craved? With the weight of the meeting lingering in his mind, Jordan stepped into the dim lighting of the corridor, his steps echoing in the now quiet building. He felt a mixture of buoyant hope and paralyzing apprehension. Each pulse of adrenaline reminded him that the real transformation wasn't merely a product of one meeting, it was the continuous cultivation of trust and transparency. The next day, he resolved to take action. Determined to build on the nascent culture he had glimpsed, he organized individual meetings with board members, hoping to deepen the connections formed during the gathering. These weren't just perfunctory check-ins, they were pivotal for communal growth, allowing others to voice fears and aspirations in a less intimidating arena. As he prepared for the first meeting with Elaine, a wave of self-doubt washed over him. He forced himself to recall their previous conversation. Her honest admission of vulnerability had resonated with the group. What if he failed to match her candor? His hands clenched together as he waited for her to arrive, filling the silence with the echoes of his racing thoughts. When Elaine entered, her demeanor was different, confident yet contemplative. Jordan cleared his throat, heart pounding. "I wanted to talk to you," he began, "about how we can transform our anxieties into opportunities at the board level." Elaine nodded, her attentive gaze urging him to continue. As he spoke, articulating their shared values and collective potential, he felt an exhilarating rush of conviction. He didn't merely want to share ideas, he aimed to cultivate an environment where individuals could radically evolve. Over the hour, their conversation spiraled into a brainstorming session, with ideas bubbling freely, fueled by authenticity. After their meeting, a new sense of clarity ignited within him. He crafted a proposal for a series of workshops focused on collaboration over competition. It wasn't merely about task completion but an exercise in empathy, innovation, and collective accountability. Laying it out was a calculated risk, pushing him into the realm of the vulnerable once more. Would the board embrace such a radical shift? Days passed, and as Jordan presented the workshop initiative to the board, he sensed a mixture of excitement and skepticism. Malcolm, arms crossed tightly, wore skepticism like a shield. With each word Jordan spoke, he could feel Malcolm's gaze bore into him, searching for flaws. How do you plan to keep this from turning into yet another forced exercise? Malcolm interrupted, challenging but also invigorated doubt wrapped in curiosity. Jordan paused, weighing his response. By allowing everyone to contribute their ideas. This needs to be a platform of openness, not just another directive. We all bring value, and expressing that should be celebrated, not stifled. The room shifted slightly, the pulse of collective anxiety turning toward contemplation. Malcolm's expression, however, remained impassive. For the first time, Jordan realized the battle was not just about ideas but about the underlying fears that governed them. Was it enough to evoke vulnerability within himself and others if there were still unwillingness to leave comfort zones? As they deliberated, apprehension simmered under the surface. Despite the buzz of ideas, Jordan's confidence faltered. He thought of the myriad ways this could fail, not only for his fledgling leadership but also for each individual whose voice had tentatively surfaced. Later that day, he found himself revisiting his own motivations, questioning whether he truly believed in the collaborative vision he was championing. Did he have the stamina to overcome the entrenched apprehensions of seasoned board members? The internal conflict roiled. He longed for progress yet felt the weight of personal doubt. Jordan knew the time had come to face his own skepticism head-on, confronting his fears of inadequacy that loomed large alongside his ambition. It was clear that the emerging culture needed not just innovative ideas but also courageous leaders willing to embrace imperfection. Would he find the strength to challenge Malcolm directly, unravel his defenses, and inspire commitment in the process? As he braced himself for the impending confrontation, he was acutely aware, each step forward beckoned the urgency for deeper revelations awaiting him, and he fought the pulse of uncertainty that shadowed his every move. What unforeseen challenges lurked just ahead, waiting to redefine his understanding of leadership? Jordan's mind raced as he prepared for his one-on-one with Malcolm. The stakes felt impossibly high. He steeled himself against the doubts that crept in like shadows, whispering that he was unfit to lead this transformative initiative. The boardroom became a theater, and he, its unwitting actor, thrust into a role that demanded authenticity when self-belief teetered on the edge. With every step toward the conference room, he conjured images of the workshop. He envisioned a space where laughter mingled with vulnerability, where ideas could take flight unencumbered by critique. This was more than just a proposal, it was an invitation to embrace the unknown, a chance for the board to redefine unity and collaboration. As Malcolm entered, Jordan felt an immediate clash of energy. Malcolm's expression was unreadable, yet there was no mistaking the intensity radiating from him. Jordan plunged into the conversation, articulating the framework of the workshops, emphasizing participation rather than presentation. He spoke about empathy, the kind that allowed innovation to flourish when individuals believed their voices mattered. Jordan, Malcolm interrupted, his brows knit together. You paint a beautiful picture, but without proper structure, these workshops could dissolve into chaos. How do you reconcile that? The question cut deep, unsettling the fragile confidence he had been nurturing. I believe structure can be organic, he replied, searching for the right words. We can create guidelines without stifling creativity. This isn't merely managing tasks, it's about allowing people to take ownership of their contributions. Malcolm simply shook his head, an almost imperceptible gesture, yet it felt monumental. You seem committed, but commitment isn't enough. We're talking about transforming mindsets. Will you be able to stay committed when the inevitable resistance arises? The challenge hung in the air, vibrant and heavy. Jordan's heart thumped wildly. Could he withstand the pushback? A part of him wanted to recoil, to retreat under the weight of doubt, but beneath that desire was another feeling: fury. Not at Malcolm, but at the doubt that attempted to corner him. It will be uncomfortable. Change is never smooth. Yet, it's vital. If we don't take risks, we risk stagnation. We risk losing the potential for breakthroughs that can only arise from facing those uncomfortable truths together. Malcolm paused, leaning back thoughtfully. And if your vision collapses? What will that say about you as a leader? Jordan inhaled sharply. He had mulled this over endlessly, the echoes of his own fears looming like specters. If I fail, I learn. To me, that is the very essence of leadership. It's not about being infallible. It's about fostering a culture where leadership itself can be a shared experience, where we learn collectively, not just individually. Malcolm met his gaze, piercing through the layers of his carefully crafted confidence. The challenge felt like a game of chess, and for the first time, an inkling of growth flickered within him. This was a moment that could shape him into the leader he aspired to be. Yet another nagging thought surfaced: had they only skimmed the surface of deeper issues? Sure, they discussed workshops and collaboration, but did anyone truly want to confront their own barriers? He couldn't shake the unease that even with Malcolm listening, a greater resistance loomed. The meeting concluded, but the conversation continued in Jordan's mind, simmering with complexity. Walking back to his office, he pondered how much he had invested in this vision, wrestling with the weight of self-doubt mingled with the thrill of possibility. The reality was stark: he needed allies, not just proponents, but willing participants in vulnerability. Would he be able to cultivate that authenticity needed to spark genuine discourse among those who lived in fear of change? As the day slipped into twilight, Jordan recognized a new resolve within himself. He had to dig deeper and challenge not only Malcolm but himself. The real test lay ahead. Fraught with uncertainty and the necessity for radical transparency. Tomorrow would demand that he elevate the conversation, inviting the board as companions in this transformative journey. Did he have the emotional stamina to confront their fears collectively, and would they embrace him as their leader? With every step forward, Jordan could feel the burgeoning urgency calling to him, whispering that his evolution lay beyond merely confronting Malcolm. It beckoned him to explore the uncharted territories of his leadership journey. What unforeseen revelation awaited as he embraced the fullness of his own vulnerability? Jordan sat at his desk the next morning, the cool surface beneath his fingers contrasting sharply with the heat of the thoughts swirling in his mind. The clock ticked relentlessly, and as he absently scrolled through his notes on workshop strategies, he felt a deeper call to action emerging: a necessity to connect, to confront, and most importantly, to transform. Each word he had rehearsed seemed inadequate in the face of the monumental task ahead. He knew he needed to frame the next discussion with the board not as a sales pitch, but as a heartfelt invitation to collectively face their fears, their resistance to change. This time, it wouldn't just be about proposing workshops but about creating a space for open dialogue where vulnerability wasn't an option but a fundamental requirement. Could he realistically expect this from people entrenched in their corporate roles, encased in protective layers built over years of avoidance? His heart fluttered with both eagerness and trepidation. He picked up his notepad and began outlining the key emotional touchpoints he wanted to harness. Personal stories, not just statistics, could serve as an opening, a bridge to dismantling the barriers of fear. How could he craft these anecdotes into a narrative that would resonate with an audience that routinely prided itself on professionalism? As he dove deeper into his planning, Jordan felt the weight of Malcolm's earlier skepticism coiling in the corners of his mind. Was he really prepared for the pushback? If others were to join him in this exploration, they would need to see a leader willing to make himself vulnerable first, to peel back his layers and expose his own uncertainties. The thought made him shiver and yet ignited an underlying determination that burned brighter within. By mid-afternoon, he had composed a rough draft of his approach for the upcoming meeting. It involved sharing moments of his own hesitations, failures, and breakthroughs, a radical transparency he had only considered before in theory. Would sharing his own struggles open the floodgates of authenticity he craved, or would it merely expose him to ridicule? The self-doubt threatened to bubble to the surface again, but he squashed it swiftly. He had to see this through. When the time for the board meeting neared, he felt a cocktail of anxiety made potent by anticipation. He stood outside the door, inhaling deeply to quell the nausea that climbed in his throat. He reminded himself that resistance wasn't merely opposition, it was just a product of misunderstanding, shaped by fear. If he could present his vision clearly, if he could show them how taking risks could invite innovation, he might just shift their perspective. In the boardroom, he was met with a sea of familiar faces, expressions ranging from skeptical to indifferent. But this time, he wasn't deterred, he embraced the challenge. Instead of diving into statistics and structured frameworks, he started with a story, not just any story, but a revealing failure, one that laid bare his fears and doubts. As his words flowed, he could see a flicker of intrigue in their eyes, a small shift from passive sentences to active listening. You see, he spoke earnestly, failure is merely the soil in which the seeds of success grow. I've stood at the edge of doubt, and I know that it doesn't have to rule us. Together, we can create a culture where each of us feels safe to step into that unknown. The tension began to break, and for the first time, he sensed the board members leaning in, their pens moving faster, jotting down notes. Could this be the pivotal moment he had envisioned? Yet, just as he began to feel the warmth of connection igniting in the room, an unexpected voice cut through the air. What if you're wrong, Jordan? What if this emotional approach leads to chaos rather than transformation? It was Malcolm, and the sharpness of his words chilled the air. Jordan held Malcolm's gaze, and for a heartbeat, doubt flickered in his chest. The question lingered. Could he really handle their combined fears? The next wave of conversation would determine not only the course of the initiative but also his resolution to embrace his leadership journey fully. In that moment of silence, he knew he was at a crossroads. Would he rise to the occasion, or retreat into the comfort of self-doubt? What fresh trials awaited him as the confrontation deepened? Jordan's mind raced as he processed Malcolm's challenge, the once calm atmosphere of the boardroom now thick with tension. He felt as if he were navigating a tightrope suspended over a vast chasm, the fate of his vision hanging in the balance. Doubt slithered through him, but he quickly re-established his footing. This was not merely a presentation, it was a critical moment of his evolution as a leader. He took a deep breath, the weight of the room's expectations solidifying inside him. Malcolm, that's a fair concern. And it's a voice that echoes in many minds, including my own, he responded, redirecting his gaze to the board at large. What if we try this together? What if we embrace the chaos as part of the journey toward transformation? He scanned the expressions of his colleagues. Some shifted uncomfortably, while others appeared intrigued. He knew he needed to further dismantle their defenses, to bridge the gap between skepticism and safety. Jordan recalled a piece of advice he had once received from a mentor: in order to lead, one must first listen. Let us make this participatory, he said, calling upon the group to engage directly. Can anyone here share a time when vulnerability yielded unexpected results? His question hung in the air, heavy yet hopeful. Silence ensued, yet within that silence, a shift occurred. A junior member of the board, Sarah, raised her hand hesitantly. I can share, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Jordan nodded encouragingly, and she began. Several months ago, I made a significant error in managing a project, and I feared I would be reprimanded. Instead, when I admitted my mistake, the team rallied around me, and we found a creative solution together. Her eyes sparkled with the memory, and a wave of recognition rippled through the room. See? Jordan interjected, his heart lifting. Vulnerability does not equate to weakness, it fosters connection, creativity, and community. Our greatest innovations might arise from our darkest moments, from sharing those moments with each other. One by one, more voices emerged, each story of hesitation, fear, and triumph adding layers to the atmosphere. The boardroom transformed, the rigid walls softened, and Jordan could feel the collective heart of the room begin to beat in sync. As the discussion flowed, Malcolm looked less menacing, more contemplative. Yet even with this shift, Jordan sensed the tension lurking just beneath the surface. He had coaxed them into vulnerability, but would they sustain it? "Jordan, this is compelling," Malcolm finally spoke, his tone grudgingly respectful. "But how do you ensure these opening moments do not lead to chaos in our processes?" Jordan was prepared for this. He had anticipated the pushback. It was, after all, a legitimate concern. "That's the essence of my proposal. Creating a structured platform for sharing, one that includes guidelines for respectful dialogue, will establish a foundation of trust. We can implement check-ins and feedback loops to keep these conversations productive." His voice carried the weight of newfound confidence, a stark contrast to the doubt that had threatened to choke him hours earlier. Through each exchange, he could feel the evolution of his leadership. He wasn't simply leading but participating in a shared journey. As the meeting progressed, the board's hesitance began to melt away, replaced by a collective curiosity. Yet deep inside, a nagging doubt still lingered: would they follow through when the meeting ended, or retreat back to their roles behind the armor of their professional titles? As the session drew to a close, he felt an expansive potential pulsing through them all. A challenge was emerging, but so was solidarity. In the final moments, he caught Malcolm's eye. "I expect doubts, Malcolm, because they mean we're pushing boundaries. But let's promise each other we'll explore this together, even when it's uncomfortable." With a return nod, Malcolm's guarded expression hinted at a reluctant acceptance. Jordan sensed that the real test of this initiative was just beginning. As the board members filed out, he wondered what vulnerabilities lay ahead and how far he could push possibilities. The next morning promised another chance to face challenges head-on. He had ignited something, but could he sustain their engagement and turn these nascent connections into actionable change? As he sat in quiet contemplation, one undeniable thought struck him relentlessly: the journey toward authentic transformation had only just begun. Would the flame of curiosity and courage endure, or was he fated to retreat once again into doubt? Jordan woke up the next morning with an urgency that shook him from sleep. The meeting had felt transformative, but he couldn't shake the question of whether it would have lasting implications. He brewed a strong cup of coffee, the bitter scent swirling through his small kitchen, mirroring the doubts that intermittently clouded his mind. He picked up his notebook, flipping through pages filled with sketches of ideas, notes from previous meetings, and reflections on the strategies he'd laid out. He felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. Today, he would meet with Sarah to discuss her project, the one where she had fostered teamwork out of vulnerability. Jordan intended to probe deeper into her experience, seeking for insights that could be woven into a broader framework for collaboration that benefited the entire team. As he prepared to leave, he glanced in the mirror, forcing a measure of self-assuredness to break through the apprehension. He told himself that leadership wasn't about having all the answers, it was about creating a culture where answers could emerge. Arriving at the office, he was struck by an awkward silence lingering in the air. Even the usual chatter seemed muted. He passed by other colleagues, faces tinged with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Perhaps they were waiting for the other shoe to drop, the fallout from the previous day's revelations. He steeled himself to face whatever uncertainties lay ahead. When he entered the conference room, Sarah was already there, flipping through her presentation slides, hesitance evident on her face. Jordan could sense the lingering air of vulnerability from her earlier confessions. "Good morning, Sarah. I thought we could discuss how we can share your experience more broadly and get others on board." She looked up, her brow creased. "But what if they don't want to engage? What if vulnerability becomes a point of mockery?" Jordan recognized his own fears mirrored in her question. "That's a valid concern," he acknowledged, "but the only way to build trust is to demonstrate that we embrace discomfort together. We'll need to create an environment where everyone feels safe speaking up." They spent the next hour developing a plan that would condense their findings into actionable strategies. His excitement as they forged new ideas felt electric. Sarah's confidence grew as well, her voice gaining strength and clarity. He realized he was teaching her, but she was also teaching him. As they finalized the strategies, Jordan's mind drifted to Malcolm. Would he be the gatekeeper to their success or the barrier? He needed points of validation. What if we presented our findings to Malcolm first? A flicker of fear rippled through Sarah. Do you think he'll accept this approach? Jordan paused. There were no guarantees, but they had to be courageous. We won't know until we try. After their session, Jordan stepped into Malcolm's office. The atmosphere felt heavy with formality. I'd like to share something that Sarah and I developed. He explained their insights and proposed strategies for creating an inclusive culture of vulnerability. Malcolm remained inscrutable, a furrow in his brow. Interesting, Malcolm finally said, but his tone remained non-committal. But it sounds like a significant shift. Are you truly prepared for the potential consequences? Jordan sensed the tension in the question, a challenge masked as concern. His heart raced, he thought of his mission, the purpose of his leadership. I believe it's necessary. True transformation will never come without risk. His answer hung in the air, vulnerable and bold. As Jordan left the office, a surge of determination ignited within him. He wasn't merely battling personal doubt, he was at the helm of a movement that could redefine the corporate landscape. Yet questions lingered, would Malcolm support their endeavor, or was resistance looming on the horizon? Deep down, Jordan understood he was standing on the precipice of significant change. The greater challenge awaited: could he galvanize others to join him on this unpredictable journey of authenticity, or would he face the weight of his convictions alone? The moment of truth approached, and he could almost hear its echo in the walls around him. Jordan's mind raced as he exited Malcolm's office. The encounter chipped away at his newfound conviction, casting shadows of uncertainty over his ambitious vision. Each step back to his desk felt heavier, as if the weight of unfulfilled potential slowed his pace. Settling into his chair, he replayed his conversation with Malcolm. The tone of indifference, the subtle questioning, haunted him. Did he truly expect support from someone who had thrived in an environment resistant to change? Jordan's heart pounded. He struggled between hope and resignation, knowing that the greatness he envisioned could become a reality, yet unsure if he could champion it alone. His computer chimed. A notification popped up on the screen from Sarah. Want to meet again before presenting to the team? Gratified by her initiative, he replied affirmatively. Their journey together had already evolved into a dynamic partnership that inspired him. As the minutes passed, he flexed his creativity, jotting down bullet points regarding the importance of her project and what it aimed to achieve. When Sarah arrived, she wore an expression halfway between eagerness and introspection. I've been thinking about Malcolm's feedback, she started, her voice wavering slightly. What if we reevaluate some parts of our strategy to better align with his expectations? The suggestion felt obstructionist, like ceding ground he wasn't willing to yield. There's merit in being adaptable, he replied, but we shouldn't compromise the essence of what we're creating. We're pitching a genuine culture change, one that fosters authenticity, not a polished veneer that appeases just anyone. A determined light glimmered in her eyes, and she nodded. You're right. I felt nervous suggesting it. I don't want us to come across as naive, though. Adaptability doesn't mean diluting our vision, he assured her. The tension forged camaraderie, fostering resilience. With that understanding, they streamlined their approach, focusing on how their findings could resonate not just with Malcolm but with everyone else who might oppose them. As they prepared, Jordan's transformative instincts awakened. He recognized that leadership isn't merely about advocating for one's ideas, it's about navigating resistance while remaining grounded in personal truths. Later that week, their team meeting arrived, and Jordan entered the conference room with a palpable sense of weight. The room buzzed with nervous energy, teammates scanning the agenda with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Would they support a concept that disrupted the status quo? Sarah took the lead, her voice unwavering. She detailed her experience, framing vulnerability within teamwork as a strength rather than a liability. There was palpable tension in the room. Faces revealed skepticism, whispers igniting doubts in the back rows. Jordan felt the urge to interject, to shift the narrative. Think of the resilience we could build through shared experiences, he urged, searching each face for at least a flicker of acknowledgement. This path isn't about promoting weakness but discovering the strength in being open. Conversations began, small hesitations dissolving into debates, empowering discussions that held promise. Yet in the moment of awakening, the excitement mingled with the threat of pushback. After the session, as colleagues filed out, one of the quieter team members, Clara, lingered. "You know," she began, "I liked what you said about strength and vulnerability. I always thought that was a weakness in corporate culture." "Exactly," he replied, gratitude washing over him. "It's a shift we need." Jordan returned to his desk, riding the wave of exhilaration punctuated by doubt. The reaction of his colleagues had awakened something within him, the power of ideas shared in unsafe space. But conflicting realizations crept in, nagging at his victorious mood. Clara's hesitation mirrored many of their team's fears, exemplifying risks he hadn't yet fully anticipated. How deep would the resistance run, and could they keep momentum alive in the face of adversity? The challenge of transforming the corporate culture was shifting from a hopeful vision to a tangible battle. Jordan grasped that the stakes were growing higher with each step forward. He couldn't help but feel the weight of consequences looming larger as well. The time had come to face deeper uncertainties, to confront an ethos that had to be dismantled. The forge of change awaited him. Could he withstand the heat? Would he emerge, sharper and resilient, or would he allow the flames to consume him? The answers lay just beyond his reach, and he could sense the defining moments broaching on the horizon. As Jordan navigated his way through the corporate labyrinth, the time for accountability had finally arrived. The previous weeks of uncertainty had ignited a spark within him, a resolute commitment that beckoned him to confront not only Malcolm but the entire board as he prepared for the climactic meeting aimed at affirming the new culture he envisioned. Jordan entered the boardroom with a strategic focus that radiated confidence. The surrounding chairs filled with skeptical yet curious faces created an unusual tapestry of introspection. He understood their trepidation, as change coerced them out of comfort and into the realm of vulnerability. He had walked that path himself, and now it was time to lead. "Thank you all for gathering," he began, his voice steady. "Today, we take a critical step towards evolving our company culture." He noticed the way Malcolm's eyes narrowed in anticipation. This was his moment to assert the role of a transformative leader. "I want to revisit our discussions from the past few weeks, particularly the notion that vulnerability can manifest as a powerful asset for innovation. We've all faced personal challenges, yet it's in those moments of raw honesty that we truly connect as a team." He glanced around the room, his gaze landing on Malcolm, gauging his reaction. Jordan presented a series of testimonials from team members, including Sarah's story of overcoming fear to embrace collaboration. Their voices spoke of breakthroughs that blossomed from shared vulnerability, compelling evidence of a newfound unity. "It's clear that our greatest potential lies not in competition but in collaboration, a position we can solidify today if we dedicate ourselves to it." The board, for once, held a palpable energy, stirred by his words. One by one, individuals began to share their challenges, the intense fear of inadequacy or the lingering memories of professional setbacks. Each admission underscored a truth: they were not alone. Leadership in an industry rife with competition was a collective struggle. With the dynamic shifting in his favor, Jordan turned to Malcolm, who was now leaning forward, engaged and contemplative. "Malcolm," he prompted gently, inviting him into the conversation. "What are your thoughts on how we can merge our experiences into actionable initiatives?" Malcolm met his gaze, and for the first time, there was no hostility behind his eyes, only the weight of shared understanding. I've always worked under the belief that showing weakness equates to vulnerability. I fought tooth and nail to safeguard my position. But seeing how you all reacted today has shifted my perspective. Perhaps collaboration can indeed lead to resilience. The atmosphere tinged with authenticity thrummed in the boardroom as real change commenced. Jordan felt infused with a sense of purpose, a fruition of the arduous journey he had embarked upon within these walls. The concept of vulnerability he had championed was no longer a mere talking point, it was becoming an integrated ethos. Moving forward, Jordan proposed, I believe we should implement structured quarterly dialogues, providing each of us the opportunity to share our experiences in a safe environment. We can call it the vulnerability sessions. Let us redefine our company values to foster a culture that thrives on mutual support instead of fear. The board murmured in tentative agreement, and Jordan sensed the shift solidifying into affirmative momentum. Concrete proposals transformed from abstract dreams into actionable frameworks, backing their commitment to personal growth and communal evolution. After the meeting concluded, an unexpected surge of pride enveloped him. Jordan had not just conquered a moment of doubt, he had galvanized a vision that resonated. Recognizing the significance of his achievements, he found himself reflecting on a personal evolution anchored in authenticity and courage. The bridge he had built not only clarified his vision but allowed his colleagues to see themselves within it. In the following weeks, the vulnerability sessions took root, manifesting into an open dialogue that welcomed trepidation with compassion. Jordan realized he had started a ripple effect, igniting a cultural paradigm shift not only within Carter Tech but inspiring other businesses observing their evolution. His position as a leader solidified, and his competence recognized by both his peers and superiors. As he sat at the head of the table now adorned with his nameplate, Jordan gazed around the room, witnessing what they had built together. The sense of accomplishment expanded within him. No longer did he carry the burden of self-doubt, he embraced an inner confidence, validated through collective trust and vulnerability. This chapter of his professional life had culminated not just in personal growth but also in tangible change. They had dismantled barriers built on fear and defensive postures, creating a foundation from which creativity and innovation could flourish. Jordan emerged as a beacon. He had proven that true leadership required strength in vulnerability, a crucial lesson embodied within the culture shifting around him. As he prepared for some well-deserved downtime, a sense of urgency blossomed within him, a call to action for those still hesitant to embrace their own journeys of authenticity. He resolved to share his story, to connect with others facing similar struggles, urging them to engage in their own transformative journeys. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories about overcoming personal obstacles. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for powerful narratives of courage and resilience. Comment with your reactions and theories about this journey towards vulnerability. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and feel empowered to pursue their own transformation. This is the moment to stand together, to uplift each other, and to create a culture of growth and authenticity. Don't wait even one more second to share.